to the Center for Catholic and Dominican Studies this evening. I know why you're here. You want to hear the presentation of what I call our 3 Down Under Smith Fellows for the summer of 2013. This past summer in the Smith Fellowship program, we had a total of 10 fellows going to various sites around the world. When they got back, it meant that a total of 32 Smith Fellows over 5 summers had received a Smith Fellowship and had undertaken service or study somewhere outside of the United States. I'm very pleased that our first presentation this week is by our 3 Down Under Fellows. Kate Mulvihill, standing here, spent her 6 weeks mostly in Sydney, Australia. And she was hosted by the Dominican Sisters of Eastern Australia and the Solomon Islands, as well as several lay people who collaborate with us hosting Smith Fellows in Sydney. Ryan Fraser and Caitlin Scharf spent a few days in the Solomon Islands, in Sydney, before they headed off to the Solomon Islands. In each instance, previous Smith Fellows have made these 2 trips. And if you want to see what some of the other ones did, you can go back to Smith Fellowship presentations that are still on the Smith Fellowship webpage under Catholic and Dominican on the college's website. I am very pleased at the experiences that our 3 Down Under Smith Fellows had this past summer. They approached the experience with a huge amount of enthusiasm. And they had 6 weeks, and if you read their blogs, and they're available on that webpage, you can tell just how much joy they experienced in their venues. They've flipped coins tonight, and Kate is going to present on her experience in Sydney. Following that, Caitlin and Ryan will present together on their experience in the Solomon Islands. And after they have completed that, we'll open up for questions, and I'll make a couple comments wrapping things up. There's some drinks and some snack food back in the conference room. If you're already hungry after supper, go get it. And I hope that you'll enjoy this hour hearing about some of the experiences of our summer 2013 Smith Fellows. So Kate, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, Father Rob. And thank you for everyone for coming tonight. My name is Kate Mulvihill, and I'm a junior here at Providence College. And it's still hard for me to believe right now that I'm standing up here giving this presentation, because this time last year, I was in all of your seats, sitting there with this dream, and the thought of going to Australia and working with Dominicans was just a twinkle in my eye. But after emailing people down under and talking with Father Rob and completing my application, in March, I accepted my 6-week Father Smith Fellowship with the Dominican Sisters of Eastern Australia in Sydney. And thanks to this program, I was able to have one of the best summers of my life and most amazing experiences possible. So I'm really happy to share that with you all today. Thank you. So My primary contact for the fellowship was Sister Rosemary Kinney, and she's the lady in the middle. She's a Dominican sister down in Sydney, and she helped me with scheduling the dates, the events, and the homestay for my fellowship. And I included her with a picture of the rest of the fellowship team, Jane Sulis and Mrs. Pooley, who all helped me schedule the events that I was going to be participating in. So for the first 3 weeks I was in Australia, I was staying in Sydney, and I was in between two Dominican schools. One was St. Lucy's and Santa Sabina. The first school, St. Lucy's, I don't have any pictures up on the board, and that's because they are a school for children with special needs. And 1 to 2 days during the week, I would go down to St. Lucy's, and I would help out in a classroom with the teacher and the teacher's aide, and about 12 students who were 5 to 6 years old. Each of them had their own mental, physical, and social disability, and it was really rewarding to be able to help in that school and see that the Dominicans over there were making it possible for those children to find an education, because sometimes it could be really hard. And the school itself was beautiful, so working in it was really rewarding with those children. And when I wasn't in St. Lucy's, I was at Santa Sabina College. And college just means a high school down in Australia. But Santa Sabina was an all-girls school from kindergarten to 12th grade. And I was lucky enough to go at a week called Santa Fest for them. And Santa Fest is the week where they were raising money for their sister school down in South Africa. The sister school did not have the same funds and opportunities that the girls at Santa Sabina had. So they were working really, really hard to raise money for this school. And some of the things we were doing were bake sales, as you can see, a sausage sizzle, where I got to try an authentic Australian sausage on the Barbie, and volleyball games, which I was really excited about because I had played volleyball in high school. And the girls were really, really receptive to me being there and excited that I was there to help. And we were able to raise a lot of money. We raised $600 in just one 15-minute lunch period for them, for their school. And Santa Fest was culminated by this huge concert put on by the girls, complete with all acts performed by their talent, and a number where all the teachers dressed up like the Spice Girls. So going along with the Catholic and Dominican theme that Santa Sabina had, they ran service events weekly and monthly. And one week I went down into Sydney with these 3 girls. We went to the Matt Talbot Center, which is a man's homeless shelter, and we served food to these men and cleaned up the cafeteria after them. And also one night we went on a service called Night Patrol, and we went in this van and delivered meals to homeless people around Sydney for a few hours. The night I did Night Patrol, I was lucky because it was the coldest night in the entire 6 weeks that I was there, and it was also torrential downpour rain. So I really got to see another side of Australia that night. And like Jane Sulis said, who was the lady that was organizing the program, that no matter where you are, could be New York, could be Australia, there's always people who are cold and always people who are hungry. So no matter where you are, it's really important to be able to help them in some way. When I was not doing these service events or the fundraisers for Santa Fest, I was able to get to know the girls in the classrooms. So I would be a math tutor in some of the classes, or I would present in some of their religion classes. But no matter where I was, the teacher would almost always have to end the class about 5 to 10 minutes early, because all the girls had questions for me about what celebrities I met, because I'm from New York, and what college life is like at Providence. And they always wanted to tell me about what to eat while I'm in Australia and the places to go, and just about their lives, and they were so excited just to tell me about their school and get to know me. And because of all this, it made participating in the Year 11 retreat at the end of the 3 weeks really one of the most standout experiences of my time there. I was able to go on this retreat as 1/3 a teacher, 1/3 a student, and 1/3 a girl a few years older who had just gone on a retreat in America and somehow just clicked with all of these people. So I was leading a group with one of the teachers and seeing the similarities of a retreat 20 hours away from a retreat that I went on back here. And ultimately, this is where I made the bonds that stayed, where I'm still contacting these people through email or Facebook or even Snapchat, if you guys have that. So after those 3 weeks were over, my fellowship kind of took a turn, and I went to an area of Australia called Newcastle, and I stayed with Sister Diana Santelban, who's a Dominican sister, and she is in the bright pink sweater right there. So as you can tell, she's a really cool and upbeat and fun person to be around, and I definitely think I learned a lot from her. But what I was primarily doing in Newcastle was working in the Panola House, which is a refugee center that Sister Diana started. And Sister Diana defined refugee as a person who fled from their country for fear they were going to get killed. And upon entering the Panola House at first, I ran into Sumya, who's the woman in the red sweater. And she had to flee from Iran. And I ended up giving her an impromptu English lesson, telling her about my family, and she was telling me all about how it's so amazing she has this freedom in Australia. And it was another kind of eye-opening experience because she came to Australia looking for freedom, whereas I came for a different reason. And it was definitely eye-opening for me, for someone to hear that and listen to her. And the Panola House used to be at Sister Diana's house, but so many refugees were coming because so many were seeking help that she just opened it to a concrete location about 2 weeks before I came. So there was a lot to do around the handiwork being of the building in the garden or the backyard. And I included a picture there of me painting a fence in an orange jumpsuit with a man from Kenya named Robert. I stayed with a bunch of the Dominican sisters at Newcastle, and at the end of the week, they all took me out to dinner at what they called the pub, and I got to know a lot of them as well. So Newcastle was a really great week of the fellowship. And the last service week I had in Australia was in Canberra, which is the capital. And in Canberra, I was working in the Catholic Youth Life office with the team of people at the top. And World Youth Day was coming up, and about 20 people from Australia were going to represent their country in Rio, Brazil, in about 2 weeks. There was a lot of preparing to do for that, a lot of working with the people who were going, so they constantly kept me busy there. We also went to a event called Guinness and God, which is we had a talk on spirituality, and while at a pub, and we had dinner and just reflected on it. And lucky for me, the theme of Guinness and God that week was femininity. And having written a bunch of papers on women's rights for Civ, I was well versed in that subject, and I had a good time at that event. So I won't be able to fully convey to you my time in Australia if I didn't talk about the family that took me in for the 6 weeks that I was there. Sue and Stephen Bell have 6 kids, 2 dogs, and own a cafe 2 blocks down from the house we were staying at. And they took me in as an additional member of their family and made sure I had the best experience possible. You can see pictures there. They took me to Sydney, and we saw the Vivid Light Festival where the whole city was lit up in neon. You can't really see the neon there, but they also took me to Sydney during the day. They took me to Bondi Beach, which is the main beach there, although it was raining, but they said, oh, you have to see it. So if I ever did feel homesick, they would be right there, and it was so nice to have a bed to sleep in each night, to have people to come home to talk to, and also free coffee from their cafe every morning, which they generously gave me. that's just more pictures of the bells. The top left is a picture. They took me on the last day to the Blue Mountain Range in Australia, which is a national landmark. So you could see they were just very, very, very welcoming. And the last thing I'm going to note is when they took me to their holiday house on the west coast of Australia called Gerringong. It was absolutely the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. And the fact that I went on a fellowship and this was just an added bonus, and I got to meet this family who really became my second family, taught me so much more than I could have imagined. So I'm forever thankful to them. And I also have to include one more thing before I end my presentation of them introducing me to someone I'll never forget. And so I hope I was able to give you a little bit of insight to my time in Australia. But thank you so much to the Father Smith Fellowship and to all of you for coming and listening to this, because it was an experience where I learned and worked with Dominicans in a different part of the world, gained a second family, and immersed myself in a new culture in a way that I never thought possible. So my blog is up there, katetakesydney.wordpress.com, if you want to hear more details, because this was not the full story here in 12 minutes or so. And also my email is there if you guys have any questions, because any of you could do the same exact thing next summer. So thank you so much for listening to me, and have a great time listening to Caitlin and Ryan. Thank you.
hi guys, I'm Ryan Frazier. I'm a junior here, a biology major, and I focused on the healthcare track while I was in the Solomon Islands.
So our first stop on our college was Sydney, Australia. Ryan and I just spent a few days here getting acclimated to the new culture, getting to know each other because we were going to spend a lot of time together over the next 6 weeks, and just seeing what it was like to be across the world and hoping that that would come back to reality.
And part of that experience was being, taken in like Kate was, by a homestay family. So each of us had a homestay family who really showed us around the city, gave us the real Sydney experience and showed us what it was really like to be an Aussie. And part of that experience was, night patrol, like Kate said as well.
But also just being forth, being the sights of Sydney, Sydney Opera House, spending an afternoon walking across the Harbour Bridge after Mass to the Grand Cathedral, and then finally meeting with our team, pictured up here. Kate kind of threw your introduction to that as well. But Sister Rosemary in the middle there was our main contact person. She kind of made the fellowship possible for us, you know, coordinating all the details before we made it over there that by the time we did meet her, we felt like we had already built this really contact with her.
So our first stop after Sydney was Honiara in the Solomon Islands, and this is the capital of the Solomon Islands. It was kind of a transition point, but we stayed with the Dominican sisters, who basically kind of took us in and showed us around Solomon culture, which was definitely culture shock to say the least. But while we were there, we made a few day trips. One to Visale, where we got to play around with some kids and see what primary school is like there, as well as we got to go see St. Joseph's in Tenerife, which is the #1 high school or secondary school in the country, actually. And it was kind of cool. They had their own rice field. So.
Being in OER was a really neat experience. It was kind of our little tagline for Kids Like It's definitely very different from the city you picture here, but for an area in the Solomon, it was busy with traffic, lots of people, tons of shops, and a really large market piece where goods would be shipped from all different areas around the Solomon. So you could hear where we were staying in Alki on a different island that people didn't have shoes because they had to go to Honara to get them. And that's a 3-hour ferry
harder, and because it's a boarding school, you're going to count on them being there every day. And then up at the top, those are all the faculty members at the school who I became so close with. And that small building in the top left corner is where the library is located.
So while Caitlin was off at school, I got to go to the hospital, which was really cool. So just a few things before I start. The general healthcare situation in the Solomon Islands, first of all, they don't have the resources that we have. So you go to the hospital and the doctor's office has an abundance of rubber gloves and has multiple syringes and tons of medication. They don't have that comfort. So that limits what they can actually do in terms of procedures and treatment. So it was definitely a wake-up call for me to see how blessed I was to have the kind of care that I have here. Also, in terms of what Caitlin was saying about education, that kind of continues on into the healthcare field. So, not everyone has to go in through education like we do here. So for people to advance all the way through to being a doctor is incredibly rare. It's also not as high paying. So the doctor-patient ratio, there were 2 doctors on an island that we were on. It was 1 hospital for the entire island, and there were 144,000 people. So that's 72,000 people for 1 doctor. So as you'll see, that's definitely makes it different in terms of treatment. And just because of the resources, they can't do some of the things we do. So every day I made a 1.5 mile walk to Kalufi Hospital, whereas Caitlin walked right across the street, and she was always complaining about how far she had to walk. But I had a wonderful walk to Kalufi Hospital. I got to interact with tons of people on the way. Just being that random white guy in town, everyone loved to say hi to me and was like, "What are you doing here?" So I had a great time on the walks, having little kids scream at me, and it was just a really, really great to see the community outside of the hospital. And the hospital is the red roofed building, and if you can see in the top right picture, the white buildings as well. It kind of goes further back. They have multiple wards: a male, a female, a children's, a TB ward because tuberculosis is a big problem there. But I got to work with a few of the doctors there, Dr. Mickey primarily, and I got to know the nurses administration. So this is Dr. Mickey. He was the guy that I follow around. If you're wondering why I have such a huge grin on my face, it's because Dr. Mickey is such a stoic person. He was saying that he was actually going to smile for this picture, and I was laughing so hard because I knew for a fact he was not going to smile. And in this picture, he was saying, "Hey, take a picture of me. I want to look cool." So he looked like that. But it's the exact same expression on his face. He was a great guy. He was a general surgeon. So general surgery, he explained to me, is a dying field here in the United States. Everyone's kind of specializing in stuff like that. So you see neurosurgeons, gastrointestinal surgeons, but he does general surgery. So he does a wide variety of different kinds of procedures. So lucky for me, every Tuesday and Thursday, there was the theater day. So I got to go in to the operation room and help him out, watch some really cool procedures. Some of the things I got to see, I got to see an appendectomy, bitubal ligation, and those are just a number of things, as well as like cyst removal and stuff. So it was really cool to see that kind of aspect of it, and I got to learn how to scrub in and do things that I would never be able to do here. So he was a great guy to learn from, and he was not just well versed in biology and medical fields and stuff like that. He was always talking to me about stuff I learned in Civ, which I thought was really kind of funny that he knew all that kind of stuff. So he was a very philosophical guy. So because I got to spend some time in the operational theater, I got to meet these guys. They're the nurse assistants, essentially. They helped out in the OR, and they loved to have me around. They were always making jokes and throwing up peace signs and stuff like that. And they wanted to have tons of pictures taken. I think I took upwards of 40 pictures on my last day because they just wanted tons of pictures. They gave me all their emails. They want to get in contact with me, so I've been in contact with them. It's really kind of cool. But on top of theater days, I also got to do ward rounds with Dr. Mickey. So I got to meet a lot of patients. This is just one of the patients, James. So Dr. Mickey was in charge of the male and the children's ward. So every day I get to go around with him and basically take clinical notes for him. So I was kind of a scribe. So that was one way I got to help them out because they definitely don't have that many people to help them out. And I got to meet some really cool people. So James here, he basically got thrown from a boat and was bitten by some kind of shark or fish. They're not really sure. but it took a huge chunk of flesh out of his legs, so they basically did a skin graft. And it was kind of cool because he was there before I got there, and it was kind of funny to see his progression. He was always trying to get out of bed and like walk around and stuff like that. It was really cute. And he was just egging to get out of bed, and he was really always had a huge smile on his face. And the last day I was there, he got to leave, so it was really kind of fulfilling for me to see that. And in terms of the spinal injury, one of my goals for the entire trip was to climb a coconut tree. It was like a huge goal of mine, and I partially achieved it. We partially achieved it. But one of the things that was deterring me was spinal injuries. One of the main causes of spinal injuries there is people climbing coconut trees and falling. So that was a little bit of a deterrent for me. But it was kind of cool to see people who had spinal injuries and see how people in the Solomon Islands rate degrees of severe back injuries in terms of progress and stuff like that. And in particular, Meldish was not a spinal injury patient, but she was a baby who was severely malnourished, and the reason for that is the people in the Solomon Islands don't have really small families. They'd asked Caitlin how big her family is.
Wow, that's such a small family. Where here, usually that's regarded as pretty big, and they would go on to tell me that they're one of 8, 9, or 10 children in a family. So there was tons of kids running around all over the place, but the sense of family there was very strong, no matter how big they were.
And because of that cultural element, women didn't really control how often they had children. So this woman conceived her next child before she had a chance to really breastfeed her other child, who she had just birthed. So the child was extremely low birth weight, and we had to try to find a way to raise her birth weight. So that was kind of cool to see Dr. Mickey go through the thinking process of like the clinical aspects, which is something I'm really interested in. And on the last day, arguably my most exciting day, there was a patient that came in with a knife wound to the face from some kind of fight or altercation. So I basically had to apply pressure to her face for an hour and a half straight, and I thought I was strong, but I'm not strong enough to hold my hands that long to apply that kind of pressure. But it was really awesome to basically assist in saving someone's life. It was something that I never thought I'd really be put in that kind of situation where I'd have to do that. But it really gave me a look at to what being a doctor is all about. And we did save her, and she got some pretty nice stitches. So.
Think of one word to sum up our experience, and we thought of community, definitely. The sense of community on the island is so strong. Everyone is so welcoming from the moment we got there until the moment we left. So to take you through a typical day for us, we began our mornings at 5:45 when the bell rang for morning mass. So every morning we would attend mass in a small chapel located right outside of the house where Sister Loretta and Brian and I stayed. And it was just so nice to see the community gather at an early hour. The students would walk miles to come to mass, rain or shine. And it was just such a nice way to start our day. I knew leaving on the last day of my fellowship that it was something that I was going to miss so much.
And that's definitely something that's different than what you would see here. So that was one of the great parts of getting exposure to the Solomons. Was an element of the Catholic Church that you don't normally see here. You don't see people walking or even driving thousands of miles to go to church. And then after that, without fail, we would go back to Sister Loretta's house for every day, and I say every day, peanut butter and banana on toast. And my palate got so used to it, it was just like clockwork. I really enjoyed getting together with Sister Loretta and Caitlin and just kind of talking about the beginning of our day and how goals that we had. Sister Loretta would always tell us some kind of joke or story, and we had this big booming voice of laughter slowly ringing in our minds. I'll never forget.
So after our time at Alabama and Kaluki, we would return step out of the role of being a teacher, and Ryan out of his professional role as a shadowing doctor, and become friends to the students. We would get to spend time with them, whether it was helping out in the garden located behind Sister Loretta's house, helping Bishop weed, or as Ryan would do, go play soccer, or as I would do, head down to town and go to the aerobics class.
It was cool to play soccer with kids. That it's just a unifying element to get to play a sport that you love so much with people who are halfway around the world, and it just really unites you. And then after that, we'd come together at 6 o'clock every day to say the rosary. And everyone gathered together for evening prayer, and it was a very similar feel to our morning masses where people were walking from across the road from school or from a few kilometers away to come to the evening prayer. And it was a great way to kind of bookend our day, and it really kind of helped shape our fellowship in faith. And it was definitely something that really I found very rewarding.
From Mass, we would return to Sister Loretta's to family dinner, which usually consisted of rice, more rice, and some kind of vegetable or fish or chicken, all fresh grown fruits and vegetables right outside the house or from the market down the street. And it was just a wonderful way to gather together, share experiences from the day, and have that time with Sister Loretta. She's such a wonderful person. She has such a big, loving heart, and she became my best friend while I was there, so I really valued that time with her.
And on some Sundays, we would go to Bishop Chris's house, who's pictured right here next to me, Caitlin, in the bottom. He's from Long Island, a PC grad, class of 1980. Great guy, he's been a bishop there for 12 years, he's been in the Solomons for 30. And basically we go to his house every Sunday, and he'd have like a family dinner for us. And so whether that was red emperor fish, which was just pulled off the reef, or it was his mom's Italian pasta recipe, giving us a little taste of home, it was kind of nice to have that kind of sense of community again, just drawing us together, and just have someone who had a common past with us. He was at PC2, and he shared a lot of common sentiments about the school.
So another opportunity we had to spend time with Bishop was a 7-hour canoe trip that we took. We rode 7 hours in the pouring rain to the island of Narayawa, and it was just a great experience to see what another village was like. Bishop was attending for their confirmation mass, so it was just an overnight visit, but it was such a cool experience. We woke up to the pouring rain on Saturday morning, and Bishop told me this is an experience I was going to tell my grandkids about, and I don't doubt that. If Ryan and I hadn't done enough talking, we weren't able to during these 7 hours because the rain was just pelting us in the face the whole way, but we had a blast. I mean, it was just so cool to meet a new village and be welcomed in. We saw that video in the beginning, and that was our canoe pulling up to the village. So you can just see how enthusiastic these people are to greet their new visitors.
And we basically got to see half of the Solomon Islands by doing the coastline trip. We basically traveled along the entire coast of the Solomons, of the island of Malta, and it was really just kind of cool to see what was these people's homes. And to see, just to clarify, canoe trip doesn't mean we paddle for 7 hours. They call anything that's a boat, regardless of whether it has a motor or not, a canoe. So.
It was more like a little dinghy. Yeah.
And when we weren't 7-hour canoe trips, round trip, we were hanging out with the kids and getting to know them really well. So picture above is a picture from my favorite day, and I'm sure you can see the glee on my face. We got to spend time with the kids, and it really gave us an impression of just the joy and the mirth that these people take out of their lives. Caitlin was getting her hair braided by the girls, and she was like, "You gotta teach me how to do this." And kids were like doing flips off my back and stuff like that. And it was just a lot of fun to get to know them.
Yeah, they kept asking me, "What do you think of the Solomon Islands?" And to everyone I said, "This is the happiest place I've ever been." The people there are just filled with joy, and there wasn't a day that passed by that I wasn't as well. So that's definitely what I took out of it.
So unfortunately, this is where we have to end our little presentation, but it also means more than an end of the presentation. It means an end of basically our entire fellowship experience. Like Kate said, we were sitting there a year ago, and this entire thing has been an experience from our very first viewing of Claire's presentation last year to now. It's kind of been bookended. We had our experience, and now it kind of comes to a close. So it's bittersweet. Like, we get to come back and tell you guys how awesome an experience we had, but also it's kind of over for us. I asked Father Ralph if I could fly again, and he said no. But I just want to express how thankful we are for the experience that we had. I made friends and met people that I never would have. I went over there with the intention of, changing people's lives and, doing service for others. When in reality I did that, but I feel like I gained so much more just by being around these people. Just the pure presence of them made me feel like I'm just so happy. It was contagious and it was unbelievable. And there's no way that I can express my gratitude for my parents and friends for their support, for the donors, and also for Father Rob and the community for selecting me.
I can only second all of that. I was so excited to come here today and finally share about my experience. It's one of those things that kind of leaves me speechless most but it's something that I will carry through my whole life as well. Spiritually, just so transformational. And I have a community across the world now that I can call my family, and that's just so wonderful. So I can only thank the selection committee, the donors, the PC community, and all those who supported me through this process. Thank you so much. And for all those who have any questions, please refer to our emails and our blogs below. We obviously love talking about our experience, and we'd love to share more with you, so please reach out to us with anything you might have.
And just to clarify what we passed around, the cross that we passed around was a gift I received one as well. It's a gift to Caitlin. It's a shell ingrained cross. So someone basically etched out holes and carved the shells so that they fit precisely. So that's one of the more meaningful gifts I think that we both received, as well as the hand-drawn painting that I passed around was something from Lebo, who was he was basically a contractor over there. He was their handyman. He did everything. But he was also incredibly artistic, so he painted us each a beautiful landscape, and that's just one of the things. And also, some of the necklaces, shell money, because that's just part of their culture.
Yep, the necklaces you'll see what I'm wearing as well, and then my lava, which is a map of the Solomons, which you're welcome to open up and kind of take a glance at as well. So thank you very much for attending.
Tell us about the Great Barrier.
Oh,
Wow.
How?
Caitlin too.
Yeah, so to close off our fellowship, we were lucky enough to add kind of a recreational component onto it. And so Brian, Kate, and I gathered in Sydney together, and we ventured off to Cairns, Australia, Northern Australia, to the Great Barrier Reef. Okay, yeah, we'll bring up a picture for you, but it was just an awesome time for all of us to get together. I didn't know Kate well, so meeting up with her across the world was so cool. And we got to take a ferry boat out to Cairns on the Great Barrier Reef and do some snorkeling there.
It was really cool to see something that you only see on TV, to see something that is something so marked in the world, and you get to see it up close and personal. I touched a 170-year-old clam that then closed shut after I touched it. It was just kind of a really cool experience. And we also got to see what Australian nightlife is like. We went on morning runs, which was awesome. Kind of see the sun, see the city before sunrise and stuff like that. So we really definitely enjoyed ourselves, and got to experience Australia on a whole new level.
Brian and I said it was definitely great to have it at the end of our fellowship, because it was a time for us to kind of remove ourselves from the Solomons, but not get back into the real world, and just reflect on the experience that we were so lucky enough to have. Whether we were just sitting down for dinner or on the 2.5-hour boat ride out to the reef, it was a time to just think about all the people that we had met, the experiences we had had, and just kind of seal the deal on the amazing 6 weeks we had just experienced.
And I'll just add my little sentiment to that. For me, it was actually in the middle of my fellowship, and I went over and I said I had made a second family in the Bells, but seeing Ryan and Caitlin in the middle of it and just having that break and snorkeling in this water was just the best thing that could have possibly happened, and I'm so thankful that that was able to happen too in the middle of my trip.
The three of you. You go over there too. Do any of you have questions? Or was it all perfectly clear? Anyway, stop. As I said, you can go to the Smith Fellowship page. All the blogs are there. Blogs really, I think, from 30 of the 32 Smith Fellows over the years. Several presentations from last year. As soon as we get these recordings, those will be mounted on that web page. You will also find the instruction and guidelines for this coming year for those who would like to apply for a Smith Fellowship for next summer. It has been revised for next summer, although I will probably revise it one more time. But literally, it's the only webpage at Providence College where you can get so much information. So much that will put you to sleep. Anyway, we will have another one of these tomorrow at 4. Emily Reers and Mary McDermott talking about their trip into the very heart of India in Nagpur, where it was 118 degrees. And then Melissa Scott will talk about her 6 weeks in Avila, Spain on a study fellowship. On Thursday evening at 7, we will hear from the 3 fellows who went to South Africa. Amanda Beluga and Heidi Freitzel, who went to one location, and Dave O'Connor went to another location, both working with Dominicans from among the friars in South Africa. On Saturday, the 5th of October, our 10th Smith Fellow, hiding back there in the corner, Molly O'Donoghue, will speak about her trip to Haiti, to Louverture Cleary School. That will be at 10:30 on Saturday morning, the 5th of October, during St. Dominic weekend. And 2 of the campus ministry students who were on a different experience at the Haitian Project, Scott Thompson and Claire Chambers, will be part of that presentation. For those of you who'd like to apply for a Smith Fellowship next summer, there's one crucial thing you have to do. Next week, Tuesday at 7 p.m., Wednesday at 4 p.m., and Thursday at 7 p.m. we'll have informational gatherings relating to how to apply for a fellowship for summer 2014. If you're going to apply for a fellowship, you better be at one of those meetings. I thank Kate and Ryan and Caitlin for their wonderful presentations this evening. As you can see, they were able to convey the enthusiasm with which they approached their fellowships and the joy that they found during their 6 weeks down under. And I would say Claire Carroll can probably say the same thing about her experience in the Solomons the year before. And you can hear about her experience. It's on the webpage. There is no truth to the rumor that Ryan and Caitlin are dating. That rumor seems to be going around campus. But after spending 6 weeks traveling together and experiencing all this together, you can bet that they're going to be lifelong friends. Again, I thank you. If you want to take a drink or an energy bar with you, please do. And I thank you for being here with us this evening.